I got the 2014 here. It's having a hard time focus, but and I have a 2018 that I'm not going to open because who needs 3 bottles of barley wine open? This year's 5th beer of Christmas is Commander Barleywine Ale, a cardamom spiced bourbon barrel aged barley wine from Lift Bridge Brewing Company in Stillwater, Minnesota. This year marks the beer's 10th anniversary. To celebrate the occasion, brewery co-founder Dan Schwarz and I sit down and talk about the beer as we sample a few vintages and some of this year's new variants. The 12 Beers of Christmas is brought to you with ongoing support from BSG Handcraft, Imperial Yeast, and the Patreon supporters of Chop and Brew. Join them at patreon.com/chopandbrew. On the 5th beer of Christmas, my brew love gave to me a cardamom spiced barley wine from Lift Bridge in Stillwater, Minnesota. And Santa also brought along Dan Schwarz. What's up, Dan? Woo-hoo!
How's it going, Chip?
Good, man. I appreciate you taking a little bit of time to sip on some Commander. I'm sure it's really the toughest part of your day.
You know, it sure does wrap up the week really nicely.
Yeah. And something even more unique than a cardamom spiced barley wine is this is 10 years of Commander. That's awesome. And this is a Christmas seasonal beer. So unlike some of our beers of Christmas, this is actually a beer of Christmas. So yeah, man, I just want to know, kind of tell me about it. Like the first time I ever had this, I remember it was at the Muddy Pig, rest in peace. And it kind of blew my mind a little bit because it wasn't billed as having the cardamom. It was just y'all's barley wine. I was like, I'm in regardless. And then like me and Elsa's eyes just like popped open when we had it. So yeah, where'd the idea come from and to have that kind of spicing in there?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, what Commander really, like where that came from originally was we put this together as a beer to celebrate kind of the holidays. So it was something we normally opened up the day after Thanksgiving. So Thanksgiving normally is with friends and friends, family, whatever. But then we also got together with our friends and drank beer after all the relatives left, and then kind of drank it through the rest of the holiday season. So, we brewed it and put it in barrels. And as you know, barley wine's a very high alcohol beer, beer brewed to wine strength. So really kind of really accentuating the barley flavor, which is kind of fun. And of course, it needs some time to not only ferment, but also to kind of settle in. You can get some heat from the alcohol. And one of the things we started doing was barrel aging that. And our first release was in 2011. And that beer, when we first released it, was super hot because it didn't have a lot of time in barrels. So over the years, we've had some time to age it a little bit more in barrels. And, for our 10th anniversary, we decided to just do 100% barrel aged barley wine. Normally, what's interesting is, with all the spices and stuff that we do, it's kind of crazy because it's a beer that isn't really brewed to drink on day one. It was designed to drink after it's sat in barrels. So kind of a fun, different thing. You want that extra ingredient, which is the bourbon barrel.
What about the cardamom? What Norwegian, what Scandinavian wanted to throw the cardamom in here?
Yeah, it was a spice that we really liked and kind of fun adjunct. We were looking to differentiate a little bit on the beer for sure and like that flavor. We had played around with a bunch of different spices, and that was one thing that really kind of stuck with us and we liked a lot. So we ended up sticking with it. And kind of as that beer ages, it kind of has a really nice undertone. Some people can pick it up, but also sometimes it's kind of an undertone and most people don't really get it. They're like, what the hell is that in the background?
What do you think it does, especially up against the barrel? Like, what kind of do you get from the cardamom?
Well, I mean, when you smell it, I mean, the other thing that we add is a little bit of orange peel. So you kind of get that brightness, certainly a little bit of spiciness, but it's really kind of a spice that not many people are used to, especially in beer. And so it creates this note that people aren't really sure about. But it does really pair well with that super rich caramely flavor, and then also that brightness of the citrus. So I don't know, it's kind of weird how that really worked out. We did a lot of experimentation with different spices, different flavors, and this is one that we felt like it played really well.
We subscribe to the Break Bread, the bread delivery service, and they kind of toss you every now and then like a little lanyap bonus, and they've been doing these cardamom buns pretty consistently. So now all of a sudden it's kind of like a flavor that I'm way more, kind of used to, like my barometer knows it. But I remember the first time I ever had this beer, it was almost cooling, right? Like some spices are warm, and I think cardamom probably even falls under warm spices, but to me it's cooling. It's not minty or like anything like that, but it gives me this feeling of kind of like soothing spiciness.
Yeah, and I think it's a kind of a culinary spice, and it goes lots of different ways. So it pairs really well with kind of the a lot of the holiday kind of foods. So like I think about especially like turkey, when you're thinking about stuffing, all of those things that are really rich in herbs and spices. It's really fun to kind of pull that all together.
Yeah, I'd like to have this up against Swedish meatballs, like not to be overly stereotypical about it, but
yeah, why not?
Cut through that. So this is a 2020. We both have it. I also have the 2014, which I bought at the brewery, I think last year, whenever y'all had the goat petting zoo. So I got the 2014 here. It's having a hard time focus, but and I have a 2018 that I'm not going to open because who needs 3 bottles of barley wine open? But you have a variant. Tell me about the variant, and I'll give my opinion of the 2014 here in a minute. But tell me about these kind of like really eccentric variants that you guys have thrown out there this year.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, for the 10th year, we have the just 100% barrel aged. Normally, what we do is we blend some barrel aged with some freshly brewed Commander, and those go really well. Like the cardamom, as you mentioned, is a key spice, but what it does is it kind of fades a little bit into the background as this beer ages a little bit. But it's really fun when we do we do the blend. But this year we decided to do just the straight barrel age. So, for the 10th year, we thought, let's just go straight luxury and go barrel age. And so, of course, if you're looking at it on the shelf, there's a badge on the side that tells you what year it's from. And kind of fun, what we do is we're always looking for to stay in the same vein for Commander, but we're not necessarily trying to make it taste exactly the same as the previous year. So as we know, this is an agricultural product, and so the terroir, growing season, all of that stuff has an impact on how that beer is going to taste. So they will all taste a little bit different based on all of those things. And then also we blend different barrels together, so you're going to get some different flavors that way. But we want to at least make sure that we keep that spirit. And as I mentioned, one of the flavors that is kind of key in Commander is we do use some orange peel. So we have a Commander version that is the old fashioned. So that one we add an additional some cherry, and then we also add some additional orange peel to really lean into those orange peel flavors as a complementary flavor. So if you're a fan of old fashioned, the bourbon, it's really kind of a fun one.
Make mine a Corbel, man. I'm a Northlands, Wisconsin kid. Make mine Corbel, baby.
Yeah, we got a lot of Corbel fans around here, so I'm sure you'll see some people liking that.
So classy.
And of course, one of the fun things that we really like to do about barrel aging is aging beer in different barrels. And so we decided to say, hey, let's go ahead and invest in a few barrels of rum. So we got a rum barrel age, and with that variant, we decided to make a pina colada, lean into that sweetness from those rum barrels, and then we added a little bit of pineapple, a little bit of coconut, and so it's just kind of crazy how different the barrel is. I mean, it creates a completely different flavor profile. And for me, it's really fun to taste those different barrels. And I'm happy to say that I was part of the process when we pulled all the different samples from each of the barrels and got to taste that. That's a huge highlight for me. And I will say that I made sure to get a ride home at the end of the night for that one.
If you don't mind me asking, so when do those kind of variant ingredients go in? Is that like you're clearly not brewing it different, so it's more like a secondary or even in the barrels?
Yeah, most of those variants. So what we typically do is we're brewing the beer. So we get the primary fermentation. That all happens as a normal Commander. And then we're putting it in barrel, and then we let it age. So once it's been aged, we kind of take notes on, what are the flavor profiles, what are the predominant tastes that are coming out of that, and then see where the beer's at. So normally when we're looking at variants, we're adding those things kind of really late in the stage, and we're like, this one's leaning towards an old fashioned, so let's find those cherry, let's find those orangey barrels, and then let's add some additional flavors to those to kind of bump those up. So those happen really late in the process.
So the 2014 that I have, it's kind of funny that you now have like an old fashioned variant, because it could just be kind of like leading the jury a little bit, but this 2014 one has a lot of like rich red cherry. The orange doesn't seem to have faded, or I don't know if it's been around that whole time, but it definitely, this drink's almost kind of flat old fashioned-y. Well, I guess an old fashioned would be flat. It doesn't have the sparkle, obviously, that the 2020 does. It's actually interesting that you mentioned that it can be slightly different recipe year to year, because they're noticeably 2014's lighter. But man, it's not oxidized. It's not all the things it could be. It held up really well. At first, when you were like, open the 2014, I was like, I don't want to be on camera being like, ooh. I should have trusted you, man. I should have trusted the process.
It's all good. I mean, I obviously, you can't speak for every single bottle that goes out, but really, we try all these every single year, and it is definitely a joy to see how the beer ages and matures. And again, kind of, we take notes on what we're doing every single year. So we have notes on what flavors are more predominant on one year to the next. But 2014 was a really great year. I know too, like 2015. So this was, 5 years ago, we did the wax dip bottle on that.
Oh yeah. I remember that shiny, that label. It had a little more shine to it than most of them, right?
Yeah. So we did that because it's 5 year for silver.
Oh, okay.
And, kind of fun. And so just, it's fun to have kind of a catalog of these. And one of the neat things that we've done is we do not release all of the beer every single year. So we purposefully hold back enough beer to have a release for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So when you come into the brewery, when we do Commander, we re-release previous years of that Commander so that people who maybe haven't gone down that road can try those out and test them.
Yeah, this is one of those styles that's good for that. Like one of the first times I ever learned that there could be a vertical, it was based around a barley wine, and they brought us in and we did 4 years, and it was a mind-blowing thing to think that a beer doesn't have to be drank as quickly as possible.
I agree. And I think, you pointed it out how a lot of these beers do not have a lot of carbonation. So you're going to find that these are, fairly viscous and lower carbonation. That's really part of the style. It's definitely something you're going to want to have in a brandy sniffer. And if you can let it warm it up a little bit, like if you came into the brewery under non-COVID circumstances, I like to order a Commander ahead of time. And then I have another beer. And then once that's done, then I go back to the Commander and try that as it warms up a little bit. Because as it warms up, you're going to start to get more of those notes, those cherries, those orange, the spice, all of those kind of fun notes.
Yeah, this almost kind of comes off like a spiced cognac or a spiced brandy. Just way softer than the 2020. Yeah, that's awesome. I can't wait to try the 2018, or maybe we'll sit on it. Maybe we'll sit on it for 4 more years, but I don't know. I think at this point, Elsa's tired of sitting on it. It's been in the basement for a minute. That was actually 2 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah. And
with
it's
the petting
cool
zoo and the Velcro wall.
Jump up and you're like stuck up against the wall. I mean, the cool thing about it is when we do release it is a beer that you can drink as is. You don't necessarily need to wait and age it. However, if you're into this, aging it for a little bit and then comparing it against different years, having vertical tastings are really fun.
I wanted to ask, actually, what is the timeline? When is this beer brewed? Like, kind of walk me just real quickly through, like, brew, transfer, barrel, bottle, release.
Sure. So normally what we're doing is we are we brew this in it's early fall typically, and then it's about a 6-week fermentation to kind of gobble up all that sugar. Okay. So we have a 15-barrel brew house, and normally what we yield is approximately 10 barrels of finished wort. So, to get the high enough gravity so that we can actually ferment up to 12.5% alcohol, you need to obviously cut that runoff early. And so we end up, instead of 2 turns to get 30 barrels, we're doing 3 turns in our brew house to get that super sticky, sweet, luxurious wort that all the yeast is going to consume. And of course, it takes extra time to just chow down on that sugar and ferment that alcohol. So we use an English strain to chow through that. And then after it's sat in the fermenter for a little while, we'll throw it into barrels. And so normally on a given year, some of that goes into barrels, and then some of that gets blended into that year's vintage. As I mentioned, this year we decided to just take all of the Commander that we brewed this year and throw into barrels for future years. And then we just did 100% barrel aged into the bottle this year. So any of the barrel aged stuff is normally a year plus old. Oh. And anything that doesn't make the vintage that year just gets put back into the cellar, and we just age it again, and we'll see what it tastes like next year. So it's amazing, when you taste a barrel that was brewed the same, put in the barrel literally right next to each other, how it can taste so different. And that's one of the really fun things about a barrel aging program, is to get the variant. It's unbelievable, sitting right next to each other the whole entire time, and it tastes completely different.
Well, I'm really glad. Happy 10th birthday, Commander in Chief.
Yeah, and the Commander is named after there's a Commander elevator in downtown Stillwater, so that's where people brought their grain to go onto ships to head down the river, and so we named it after that. Our namesake down there. So we kind of got a little picture here of the Commander.
Oh, is that the visual reference? That's a grain elevator?
Yep, we got a grain elevator on there, and that's what you see there. And it's also an homage to obviously the barley and the grain, which is a huge feature in this beer. A lot of beers are all about hops and some of the other stuff, and this is really all about the barley, really just featuring that.
Maris Otter, wheat, biscuit, crystal. I'm just looking off to the side of the website. So that Maris Otter, it's that rich stuff, and you're catching it with a lot of sugar. So
absolutely, it's so luxurious.
So I haven't asked anybody this, and I was like, I should have been asking everybody this. So I've missed 4 opportunities. So 2020 has been kind of jacked.
Yeah.
What's one good thing that happened for you and or Lift Bridge in 2020 when you look back?
Great question. I think we've really seen a lot of the consumers kind of coalesce around local, which has been good. And I think it's really hyper-focused people on making sure that they support the businesses and the people that are around them. I've really been humbled by people coming in and saying, hey, we want to make sure that you're here and you're around for a long, long time. which is cool. I also want to say too, like we have an amazing staff here, and it's been tough on everybody. We've had to reduce hours, and people have had to do layoffs and all that stuff. But, we have everybody is really supportive of that. And again, you really understand that we're all family. So I have to say it focuses you really on what's important. And a lot of that is really about the people.
I hear that. All right, brother. Cheers.
Hey, cheers, Chip. Thanks a lot for having me.
Yeah, here's to 10 more years of Commander.
And if anybody wants to check it out, just go to your local liquor store. If they don't have it, we certainly do have some here in the tap room. So,
in Stillwater, right under the tower.
Cheers.
All right, brother.